We're at Kendal Mountain Festival with Huw James, who's a climber, mountaineer, and co-founder of the Athlete Climate Academy. How are you doing, Huw?
Yeah, it's been a full-on festival this year.
What do you get involved with in the festival?
We've been doing one of the best things that we do every year is a schools event, which no one really talks about because it's invite only for school kids. And I'm always talking about the outdoors and science and the links between the two, which was especially poignant this year with COP26 and the climate change summit and the likes. And then we've been doing public events all weekend then, just trying to distill what that event, the climate change summit, would have meant for outdoors people.
So how did you get into climbing and mountaineering and science, and then where did they kind of merge together?
You find with a lot of mountaineers, climbers, and a lot of scientists that there's so many different facets to them. We get these labels as this one thing or this other thing. This morning I just had breakfast with Huw James, who's a fantastic runner, but also a biologist who lives out in Chamonix, looking at the biodiversity of the Mont Blanc Massif. And you find that time and time again that it's the intersections between what people do that the good stuff comes from. So my background's actually astronomy and space science and geology. I wanted to be a planetary geologist. I'd love to be the first person to climb a summit on the moon or something ridiculous. But yeah, I started thinking more about the stars are going to be there for about 5 billion years, or at least ours is. So there's more poignant issues to talk about in science than when the sun's going to explode. And that's climate change. So as I recently got more into trail running because I injured myself climbing and whatnot. But I found that there was a really good overlap between who cares about the outdoors and who spends time in the outdoors, and it's people at Kendal.
Do you think from the last few days in Kendal, are people talking more about these issues, especially in light of COP26? Is it a bit of a hot topic here?
It feels, we definitely surround ourselves in little bubbles of who talks about this kind of stuff, who are the ones that care about it. And I try and make myself get outside that bubble every now and then, because for me, there was a poll out not so long ago asking who thinks about climate change or who talks about it and how often. And I think it was around every month people normally talk about climate change. For me, it seems to be every other hour. And you can easily get caught out by thinking, oh, everyone's talking about this all the time, and that's not true at all. So at Kendal, there seems to be like an undercurrent of climate topics, whether that's sustainability, it's product manufacturers saying that they're going to do more to get to net zero, whether it's people directly talking about the climate change summit and what it means for people. So it does feel like there's that direct link between people who spend time in the outdoors and they see what's happening around the world.
Yeah, it definitely feels, I've felt it as well this year, like coming straight from COP26 to here, like maybe I'm slightly biased and I'm thinking of it a lot and seeing it everywhere, but what kind of things, what are the issues that outdoor people should be thinking about when they're climbing and mountaineering, and also the wider impact on the climate?
Yeah, I suppose there's lots of direct and indirect things that come from climate change. The direct ones are things like, in the UK, we're going to be experiencing less snow in winter. We're going to be experiencing more wet days, if that's even possible, across the year, in the summer and the spring months. And seasons are just changing. They're moving forwards and backwards, and it's just more instability than we've ever had before. And you apply that then to places like the Alps, which are warming faster than most places in the world. Up in the high Alps, we're losing glaciers at the rate of about a meter per year. And it's just the routes are more dangerous. That when you're trying to climb different routes. I was just before COVID. I was out in Chamonix doing the Cosmic Zéret, and people were going up the Tacoul and onto Mont Blanc, and at some point the snow bridges just collapsed and the route was inaccessible again. So it does feel like that's the direct causes, but then there's also so many indirect things that happen as well. Like, as we lose those glaciers, that's fresh water for communities around the Mont Blanc Massif and on the low plains of France that are not going to have fresh water. That applies to the Himalaya times 1,000. There's 1 billion people that rely on that fresh water. In the Andes, it's the same. So there is no one on the planet that climate change won't affect.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the time it's the people that are least involved in causing the people with the smallest carbon footprints that are at the forefront of the disasters, like floods and heating, like fires, forest fires. Also, like for the outdoor industry, I think one of the biggest issues is flying. Like we like to travel all over the world, and there's a lot of talk at the moment about adventuring closer to home, and I think COVID has accelerated that. People are talking about going up to Scotland or just exploring more locally. Is that something that maybe you're doing more yourself and you're noticing other people doing?
Yeah, I've literally just been pitching the last few days. I headed home early from the Film Awards last night because I was so inspired to finally get a film that I wanted to do for a while up and running, which is a film all about coal mining in South Wales and the tips that are still super dangerous for a lot of people. So venturing closer to home is something that I definitely did during COVID, but that equally then it's these knock-on effects that you think, climate change won't affect me that much, especially in a developing country, and that's true to an extent. We can innovate our way around it. We got better infrastructure and the likes. But with people then spending more time closer to home and adventuring closer to home, you put added stress on the infrastructure in areas like Llaberis and the Lake District and the likes, and we see it. I was just talking to someone the other day from Pau who lives in Snowdonia. He's like, I've never seen it as busy as it has been through COVID, and that added stress just means it's for the people who live there, it's for the people who go there. And that's going to be just exacerbated more and more.
We talked a bit on stage the other day about imperfect advocacy and people maybe feeling a bit scared about speaking out on climate change because we all take flights. Like I'm taking a flight tomorrow, and we feel like because we're not doing absolutely everything and we do have a carbon footprint that we're hypocrites for speaking out about it. How do you feel about that, and how should people kind of balance minimising their own impact with still leading an adventurous lifestyle?
I'm on a mission to try and get people to feel less guilty about the stuff that they do. I love the idea, it might be a little bit of an urban myth, that Edison invented the light bulb via the paraffin lamp because you work with the technology you have to arrive at a better technology in the future, right? So we have to work within the rules that we have. Fossil fuel powered cars are still a thing, fossil fuel powered airplanes are still a thing. We could definitely push for more science funding to innovate better for that kind of stuff. So electric planes won't be that far away. They've been prototyped as we speak. Electric cars are here. We need better infrastructure. We need politicians to enact better policies that make it more viable to have electric cars and bring those prices down. And I just want people to feel less guilty about the stuff that they do because we just work within the rules. And the one thing that, people are already doing this is just talking about it. When we increase these kitchen table issues, when people go to the polls and vote, politicians know that what people are talking about, what people are thinking about, economy, immigration quite a lot, and climate change is a big thing. So when they go and vote, we just saw in Germany's election and Canada's election that climate change is what they're talking about. And I think we forget that it's not been that long that's been a thing in the last 5 or 10 years. And I think it's phenomenal that we're at this point already. And we can do more to push them to do it. We can do more to push our people we directly work with, outdoor manufacturers, outdoor brands, to take a stand as well. And I think we're seeing that at Kendal too. Yeah,
well, that leads perfectly, all this talk about policy and governments, this leads perfectly into COP26. We were both there. I never actually bumped into you because we were so busy, it was a bit manic, but we were trying to figure out which events were mountain themed and which other things to go to. What were your impressions of COP?
That it was massively divided along the lines of the policymakers and the people. And every other spectrum that you could think of dividing it up by, it could be divided by. But the ones I was most heartened by was the activists, the people doing stuff, the scientists doing really cool stuff. You went to the session where Tom did a talk on, which I didn't see, but I caught up with him with beers later. He did a talk on placing the highest weather system in the world, and on Everest. Yeah. So and they're finding that the snowpack is changing. They did another session out there where they were looking at plastic pollution, which was a wonderful study that Imogen Napper did the science on, and they found that from the trail, microfibers that come off of clothing and things, as the more you go away from the trail, the less microfibers you get. So it's like the perfect bit of science that said, there's humans here, and the further you go away from humans, the less microfibers you find, and they found it all the way to the summit. So it's really good. That link between science and exploration at COP26 was really evident.
And did you go to any of the Blue Zone events? So the Blue Zone events are where you had to get a press pass and it was all the delegates. Did you see or go to any of those events?
I was working, I spent my time there, and I think it's something that I've been thinking about a lot, is where I spend my time in front of camera and where I spend my time behind camera when I tell stories, and when I take a step back as a white male with privilege to let other people tell their stories. And for all of COP26, I chose to do that, and I worked with Welsh Government to have Indigenous leaders over from South America and young people from Wales to tell their stories. So they spent a lot of time in the Blue Zone talking about how climate change is affecting them. I'm heading back out to Peru next year, hopefully to work with some of them out there, and we've just linked up the Honnold Foundation, who do wonderful things in solar energy, with a tribe in Peru as well. So those links are still coming together. But yeah, I spent all my time in and around the Green Zone just helping people tell their stories.
Do you think, it seemed like the next generation, as you said, there are lots of activists and they're all very young, and a lot of them are female, like Greta Thunberg, Vanessa Nakate. Do you think that's a positive sign for the future? Like the younger generation seem very politically engaged and seem really interested in the topics.
Yeah, very much so. Like, unfortunately, it's not going to be, they aren't going to grow into policymakers quick enough for us to deal with climate change. Unfortunately, we've still got stale pale male politicians that those are the people we currently need to change the minds of and get them to do more action. I would be happy if people like that were the ones in power right now. It'd be great. We would solve a lot more issues. But I think we also forget that this has been an issue for I recently saw Carl Sagan did a talk back in 1984, the year I was born, about climate change. And scientists have been pushing for it to be mainstream for almost 40 years now. And we think that this climate activism is a new thing, and it's just coming into the mainstream. And I suppose it is, but they stand on the shoulders of all of the people that came before them, and they're doing a great job to keep the torch alive.
Yeah, I actually learned that it has roots in the civil rights movement, and I was ignorant to all of the history behind climate change. What's your what are your plans for the next year or so? Have you got any adventures coming up, or any big topic?
One of the big things we're going to try and do next year with the Athlete Climate Academy, which I run with Cillian Shawnet, is we developed it to try and bring education into the outdoor industry on climate change, because there's no bigger field of science than climate science. Like, it touches on everything, whether it's geology, astrophysics, biology, engineering, every single thing. You can ask me in climate science, whether it's sending satellites into space to look back down to Earth, or going on expeditions to discover stuff in Antarctica. So it's complicated. So we wanted to start the Athlete Climate Academy to start breaking down some of these more complicated issues for people who want to talk about it, and give athletes the confidence then, and outdoors people, to talk about climate change on a more regular basis, and have the confidence that they know the facts, and the real facts to kind of back that up. So for the Athlete Climate Academy, I think we'll start doing more physical events. Fingers crossed, as we go into a more vaccinated 2022. My gosh, 2022 already. And just have more physical events, have more kind of meetups, have more, not secret events, but like have more closed events that allow athletes to talk more openly about the brands they're sponsored by and how we can get brands to do better. There are a lot of great brands doing some really good stuff. I'm a RAB athlete, and I've worked with RAB to make sure that they're doing great stuff, but I'm always pushing them to do that a little bit better. And no matter how good we are doing as people, as brands, whatever, we can always do better. So I think 2022 will be because the countdown clock is on for climate change. We got 7 or 8 years to do the right thing. We're going to be pushing more and more and more.
Yeah, hopefully we get there. And then one silly last question. You're into planetary geology. What's your if you could make the first ascent of a mountain on another planet, which mountain would it be?
Oh gosh!
Because we posted an article about this.
Oh really?
We listed the top 10, like a destination guide to the solar system.
What was in the top couple on that?
Olympus Mons, obviously, but it's a bit boring.
Yeah.
And then I can't remember. Some ridges. There's some really good ridges. But
Yeah, there's some really good ridges on moons like Mimas and the likes. My favourite moon of all of them is one called Titan, which is one of the largest moons in the solar system, a moon around Saturn. And the mountains on Titan are, a lot of them are cryovolcanoes, so they spew out. It's a really good question of what is magma when it comes to other moons around planets around the solar system, because here on Earth you see a volcano, the stuff coming out is rock and it's molten and we know what it looks like, but on Titan it's ice, it's water ice, the magma there. So I think the first person to climb a cryovolcano on Titan, that would be it for me.
That'd be awesome. Well, hopefully when the planet doesn't burn and we have to colonise another moon or.
Let's stay on this one first, and then we'll see.
Yeah, then you can go for your first ascent. So thank you, Huw. Enjoy the rest of the festival, and good luck with all your projects.
Thanks.